Welcome back, everyone. In this video, we'll be going over the repairs that we had to make to the foundation of the shell of this 1949 Spartan Manor trailer. And this has proven to be the most difficult part of the project so far. Welcome back to this ongoing series on the renovation of my 1949 Spartan Manor camper trailer. We had to make repairs in 3 sections. The first was in the back left corner, the second was along the right side, and the third was along the entire front section. All of these sections we ended up repairing slightly differently, and I'll go over each one of these in turn. So if you're tackling anything like this, I really hope that this video is helpful to you, because this was a really hard part of the project. As you can see, there's this sturdy aluminum channel all along the bottom of the body of the trailer. And in some places, unfortunately, I think it's been in contact with steel and just eroded, corroded, whatever the proper term is, away. And it's particularly bad right here. Here's the section in the back left that needs to be replaced. As you can see, it's actually made of 2 pieces of angle iron rather than 1 single piece of channel. This is the worst section. You can see it's just completely missing. And here it was actually 2 pieces of angle iron. Well, not angle iron, angle aluminum put together. So here's a little bit of channel, but here's the outer piece of angle iron. And again, I'm not really sure how they bent it. So that's gonna be a lot of work to replace. So why does this happen? Basically, it turns out that when 2 dissimilar metals are in contact with each other and getting wet from rain or humidity in the air, one will corrode more quickly than the other. This is called galvanic corrosion or bimetallic corrosion. In this table here, metals are arranged in a galvanic series with the least reactive metals at top and the most reactive metals on the bottom. So if 2 of these metals are in contact, the one on the bottom, which is more active, is more likely to undergo galvanic corrosion and deteriorate more quickly. So for this trailer, you can see that the aluminum is lower on the table than the mild steel, which the chassis is made out of, and the aluminum has indeed deteriorated much more quickly than the steel. This is why steel ships have pieces of zinc welded to the hull to protect the steel. In this case, when one metal is used to protect another, it's called a sacrificial anode. Now I'm using a grinder to cut the bad parts of the channel. I had to cut away a lot of this just so I could reach in with the grinder to try and cut that back part of the channel. The next step is to center punch all the rivets that I need to drill out. Look at that. I'm trying to drill out just the heads of the rivets so I can still pull the channel away without enlarging the holes in the shell. And even still, it's still slipping around. So I'm still trying to steer it. Might do a couple more here. I've set this up down below to catch all the small aluminum shards that are inevitably made by drilling. This is already broken off. And there were a lot of rivets to remove. That is a mess. Here's an existing example of a nesting piece of channel that I'll need to have made. I had this piece of channel made up, and I'm not sure if it's going to work. I gave the company this sample. As you can see, it has quite a curved profile, and they said they weren't able to do any curves like that, so it's just straight bends, and it doesn't match in a lot of dimensions, but I will try to offer it up here and see if it fits at all. Not super satisfying. And I also asked them to make some smaller pieces of channel that I can nest inside of there to do this joint over here, but it doesn't fit in there. With a little bit of convincing, these pieces did end up fitting okay. And to secure this new channel in place, we're simply replacing all the rivets. Okay, set.
3.
So cool. And we'll need the longer rivet there. Set.
3.
This is shot quite a bit later, but here it is all installed. So if I had to do this part all over again, I'd probably just use some angle iron and some flat bar because it would have been cheaper and just as effective. Now I'm going to work on drilling out those rivets from the outside to take out this heavily eroded, corroded channel that is the support for the shell. Just like before, this is a lot of center punching and drilling out rivet. So there are a whole bunch more rivets on this side. I'll have to grind those off until you can pry away the corroded metal. I might need 2 hands for that. I've managed to remove all of that rotten aluminum channel, and it's revealed this little gouge. A lot better already. Look at how this aluminum has just become like phyllo dough. Pretty crazy. To practice bending some angle, I just got some drywall corner because this was like $4 as opposed to the aluminum angle that I bought. According to those calculations, if I made a cut every inch, I would want to cut 1/16 of an inch off of the edge to make a wedge there. This highlights my concern with the aluminum angle as well, in that this shell is also curving out. It's not going straight up and down. And so this gap here, I just don't know. This is a complicated piece. I'm trying to turn these pieces of angle into something like this. Now I'm just laying out the 1-inch tabs and using the ruler to make sure they're straight. And here's a test bend, which was actually pretty satisfying. Okay, so we want to get an idea of how this fits in. And to get up behind that. Using the grinder to cut the aluminum left a lot of burrs, so I'm just filing them down. This is why I later use a hacksaw and even a miter saw to cut the aluminum. I was initially going to double up the angle like this, but in the end, I just used a piece of flat bar for the inner curve instead. You'll see. Cool. Now I'm cutting the vertical tab so I can try and match the vertical curve of the shell. So hopefully this can make the curve on that back left side. And then these can be bent to go along the shell. As you can see, there's still a gap, so I measured at each tab, then use a pipe wrench to bend each one back the right amount. After a few times of bending these tabs back and checking the fit and bending them again, it's looking like it's actually fitting pretty well now. Had to cut a notch out of the back of this so that it could fit behind here, and did the same there so that it abuts directly there, and that makes it line up really well there. And that makes it line up well there. And unfortunately I cut this one short. It should have gone all the way to here. So that was a bit of a whoops. So let's start by drilling some holes through the outside into that flat spot. Oops. I don't know if you can put a knee against the shell. Yeah, just because I'm trying to squeeze the metals together at the same time.
Yeah, I've got a knee.
There we go, that helps. Okay, I'm set.
3.
All right.
3.
Okay, I saw that you pulled the metal in too, so
Yeah,
that was good.
that was good.
And then it was just some more buck riveting to secure it all in place. I'm set.
3.
And to finish off this corner, I've cut a piece of flat bar to fit, and I'm riveting it into place. And I am just using pop rivets here because it's a lot easier, and these are not going to be seen. And so that's the back left side all fixed up. Pretty much the same story here as on the other two problem areas. I'm center punching the rivets and then drilling them out until I can remove all of the corroded aluminum. There we go. For the central stretch of rivets, I did have to drill them from the inside because the trailer tongue prevented me from reaching the rivets with the drill from the outside. Here is some of the corroded aluminum I was able to take out today. This part you can see is bending under the weight of the front, and so I want to try and lift this up a bit. It's going to crush a little bit there as well. I don't need to lift that much. What I'm thinking I'll do is try and put a piece of wood up there and then put a jack down here, and that is all to raise this off of here. That's much nicer to have it lifted off with the jack. I got a 12-foot piece of angle to try and do the forward part of the shell. So starting on the front left side, there's a little bit of that vertical frame here, and it goes 14 inches to the next frame, and then 14, then it starts to curve around for 31 inches, where it passes the first frame up forward and left, kind of on the front side of the trailer, and then it's 24 inches to the middle of the trailer, and then it just mirrors on the other side. Every inch. It's a lot of cutting, but what else do I have to do? And then every inch. So these are just going to go straight up and down. So then I use the miter saw to make hundreds of cuts. That's tiring. And this is what it looks like when it's almost ready to go in. I'm also using the miter saw to cut notches to make room for the vertical frames. And then the first test fitting in the trailer. While this was a big step, I knew there was so much more work to do, because to make this fit, we'd have to measure and bend each one of these tabs back to match the shell. The Pacific Northwest fall and winter soon set in, which made it quite unpleasant to work outside. In the meantime, I kept on thinking about how to tackle this part of the project. One of my main concerns was how to make sure that this aluminum angle was at the right level, and I finally decided that I needed to put in some of the subfloor to get it level. And in order to do that, I had to remove the jack from the trailer tongue and slide in a piece of the OSB subfloor, trace the outline, and cut it to fit. Oops. This took a bit of back and forth. Once I had the subfloor in place, I thought it would be a simple matter of lowering the shell down onto the subfloor with the aluminum angle in place. But unfortunately, it didn't quite work out that way, which you'll see why in a minute. So the tricky part is that there's this gap here, well, and also it's floating off of it right now. I drilled some holes in the aluminum with a piece of steel in the back to make sure I didn't punch through the subfloor, and then put screws down to help hold it against the subfloor. So here I think it could be curving up more because some of these are actually still hitting, so it's not being able to curve like it should. So when I take this out, I will shave a little bit off of each of these little legs right here, and hopefully that'll help it sit down better. That is 7. I was then able to measure the distance between each tab and the shell so that I could then bend it back and hope to match that slope. This took a really long time and ended up being all for naught. Superficially, it looked good once we put it back inside. As you can see here, the hole for the rivet is really low down on this angle. So what I think we're gonna do is take this out and chop off a lot of the height of here, because we're having problems with these tabs actually holding the shell away from here, and we're getting a gap between the shell and the bottom of the angle where it's actually critical that the rivet attach. So you can see I'm cutting off most of the height of these tabs. With the angle back in, we reinstalled some of the apron and secured it with clecos and drilled some more holes for future rivets. So you might be able to tell here that that hole is up on the vertical part of the angle, whereas over here, and actually right there, you can see we're almost drilling through the horizontal part of it, and that's no good. right, so I've jacked this up and I'm pretty happy with where the holes are lining up on this part of the angle here. You can see I'm just barely making it onto there. So I think if I can maintain that height on the shell everywhere will be good. So what I'm gonna do now is measure that distance underneath right here and make sure I keep that all the way around. So I've been making sure that that aluminum is down low enough and then drilling a hole and putting in a cleco to help hold it. All right, we pretty much have this whole side drilled out and secured with clecos. Of course, we still need to put in pieces like this, but I'll do that once we're ready to rivet it. Once I had all the holes drilled into the aluminum angle inside and secured with clecos, I could then work to reinstall the aprons. So first I had to remove all the clecos, work it in, and secure it again with clecos. It could be pretty challenging to line up holes in 3 layers of aluminum, so I did find it helpful to use an awl at times. But you want to be careful because the aluminum is really soft and you can just make these holes too big. All right, we have one of these aprons in, with clecos anyway. And we still need to rivet it in, but this is a major step. So we got the right side apron in a similar way. Perfect. And then it was time for a lot more riveting. Set.
3.
Set.
3.
All right, can you do 2 more on that one?
Yep.
Set.
2.
Okay. And of course, August came over to help.
Hi. On my lap. I can't grill right now. Now he's between me and the clecos. Got the dog tail in by the rivet. 5. Whoa, I'm so happy.
It was good we had a selection of rivets because we did have to use some of the longer ones to get through the 3 layers of aluminum. And this is the very satisfying result of all this hard work. The front put back together with the aluminum angle secured inside to sit on the subfloor. The last step up here was to install the aluminum flat bar, and I first got it into position with some clamps. And it was actually fairly difficult to push it into position so that it was tight up against the aluminum angle. So having an extra pair of hands is really useful on this step. After a few quick rivets into the frame, set. This final piece was installed. Overall, this part of the project cost about $208 and took about 28 hours of manual labor between me and my mom. So if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. If you found this video at all helpful, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit that like and or subscribe button, as that will really help me out a lot. So I hope to make a lot more progress in the coming months, and it's very satisfying now to start seeing some real visual changes to this project. Because for so long, a lot of the work we were doing was just on the chassis and on the shell. And after months of work, you can kind of look at it and be like, what have we done? And now we're starting to see some really satisfying progress. So I hope to have some updates for you soon, and thanks again.